The millionaire is shocked after discovering the black beggar's secret child. Emily Carter, just a small-town girl working at the Davenport Manor. Yeah, the Davenport Manor, perched right on those crazy cliffs in Cornwall. Years ago, she lost her folks, and honestly, dusting antique vases for old man Richard Davenport kinda kept her sane. Richard? Nobody ever saw him, like a ghost in his own house. Then came that storm, a real screamer. Emily was whipping up some late-night toast, and bam, there he was. Richard Davenport himself, looking like a drowned rat. Something sparked that night, a shared look in their eyes, as the wind howled outside. A few weeks later, Emily was pregnant. And Richard? Gone. Poof! Vanished without a trace after the storm. The whispers started, sharp and mean. Mrs. Higgins, the housekeeper, practically spat venom. Emily was alone, pregnant, and the whole manor acted like she had the plague. She named him Gabriel, her little fighter. A year crawled by. Emily lived in a tiny cottage, just her and Gabe. He was a bright spark, that kid. Then, one day, a shiny black car pulled up. Out stepped a driver, all haunted look in his eyes. He took a step towards Emily, a question hanging in the air. "Richard, darling, what on earth are you doing here?" A voice, cold as ice, a woman, dripping in diamonds, stepped out of the car. Cassandra Davenport, Richard's fiancée, her eyes narrowed, like a hawk spotting prey. "And who are these people?" Richard's face went white. Before he could speak, Cassandra cut him off, her voice laced with poison. "Don't tell me! Is this some kind of charity case? Richard, you always did have a soft spot for the less fortunate." She turned to Emily, a cruel smile twisting her lips. "I'm Cassandra Davenport, Richard's fiancée, and I suggest you keep your distance from him and his family." But before Cassandra could unleash another word, Gabriel, clutching his beat-up teddy bear, toddled forward and tugged on Richard's coat. "Are you my daddy?" he asked, his eyes wide and trusting. Richard froze. Cassandra gasped, her perfect mask cracking. The wind howled louder, carrying secrets on the salty air. What was Richard going to say? And what was Cassandra Davenport so desperate to hide? Ei, antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso te fazer alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. Ah, e me conta nos comentários, de qual cidade você está assistindo? Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. Richard froze. Cassandra gasped, her perfect mask cracking. The wind howled louder, carrying secrets on the salty air. What was Richard going to say? And what was Cassandra Davenport so desperate to hide? Richard looked from Gabriel to Emily, his eyes pleading. "Cassandra, please, just let me explain." "Explain? Explain what, Richard? That you've been playing house with the hired help? That you have a child running around who's not mine?" Her voice was a viper's hiss. He flinched, but then Gabriel tugged harder on his coat. "Daddy? Are you my daddy?" That's when it happened. Richard knelt down, his eyes welling up. "Yes, son, I am your daddy." Cassandra shrieked, a sound that cut through the wind like a knife. But it wasn't the words that did it. It was what came next. From the house, Mrs. Higgins, the housekeeper, came running. But she wasn't yelling at Emily or Gabriel. She was yelling at Cassandra. You've known all along, haven't you? You knew about him." Mrs. Higgins was practically spitting with rage. Cassandra's face was a mask of pure fury. "Shut your mouth, you old crone. No, people need to know." Mrs. Higgins stood her ground, her voice shaking but firm. "Richard isn't who you think he is. He's not a Davenport at all. He's a Carter." "A Carter?" Emily's head swam. That was her last name. Mrs. Higgins pointed a trembling finger at Richard. "He was switched at birth. Old Mr. Davenport. He couldn't have children. He paid off a nurse to switch Richard with the Carter baby. The real Davenport heir died as a baby." The air crackled. Richard's face went ashen. Cassandra looked like she'd been slapped. Gabriel, bless his heart, just looked confused. "It's true," Richard whispered, his voice barely audible above the wind. "I found out a few years ago. I was going to tell everyone, but Cassandra convinced me not to. She said it would ruin the family name, ruin her." Cassandra's composure finally shattered. She lunged at Mrs. Higgins, a diamond-encrusted hand raised to strike. But Emily reacted faster. She stepped in front of Mrs. Higgins, shielding her. "Get away from her," Cassandra sneered. "You think you're protecting her? You think this makes you special? You're still nothing but a—" Before she could finish the sentence, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the cliffs. A deafening clap of thunder shook the ground, and then the cliff edge, right behind Cassandra, crumbled. She screamed, a sound swallowed by the wind. She flailed, trying to grab something, anything, but it was too late. She disappeared over the edge, swallowed by the raging sea below. Silence. A stunned, horrifying silence. Richard stared at the empty space where Cassandra had stood, his face a mask of shock. Mrs. Higgins gasped, clutching her chest, and Emily just held Gabriel tighter, her mind reeling. Had Cassandra fallen? Or had she been pushed? And what did this mean for Richard? He wasn't a Davenport. He was a Carter, just like her. But more importantly, if Richard was really a Carter, and Gabriel was his son, did that make them family? The wind howled, mocking them all. The secrets hidden in Davenport Manor were just beginning to unravel, and the biggest one of all had just been thrown off a cliff. Silence. A stunned, horrifying silence. Richard stared at the empty space where Cassandra had stood, his face a mask of shock. Mrs. Higgins gasped, clutching her chest, and Emily just held Gabriel tighter, her mind reeling. Had Cassandra fallen, or had she been pushed? And what did this mean for Richard? He wasn't a Davenport. He was a Carter, just like her. But more importantly, if Richard was really a Carter and Gabriel was his son, did that make them family? The wind howled, mocking them all. The Secrets hidden in Davenport Manor were just beginning to unravel, and the biggest one of all had just been thrown off a cliff. Then Mrs. Higgins spoke, her voice raspy. The Cotters, they always had a temper. She looked at Emily, then back at Richard. A strange look crossed her face, almost pity. Richard took a step towards the cliff edge, but Emily grabbed his arm. "Don't. It's done. Nothing we can do now." He just stood there, numb, like a puppet with its strings cut. Suddenly, Gabriel started to cry, real heart-wrenching sobs. Emily knelt down, trying to comfort him, but he just pointed towards the manor. "Grandma! Where's Grandma?" Emily froze. Grandma? Gabriel had never met a grandma. He barely knew Richard. Richard's head snapped up. "What did you say, son?" Gabriel, still crying, repeated, "Grandma! She told me stories. Where's Grandma?" That's when Mrs. Higgins went white. She started shaking so hard, she looked like she might collapse. "No, it can't be." Emily looked from Gabriel to Mrs. Higgins, confusion swirling inside her. "Mrs. Higgins, what is it? Who is he talking about?" Mrs. Higgins took a shaky breath. The real Mrs. Davenport. Richard's real mother. She didn't die. Not really. Richard's eyes widened. "What? Are you saying she died when I was a baby?" Mrs. Higgins shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "That's what they wanted you to believe. But she was sick, very sick. Old Mr. Davenport, he couldn't bear to lose her. So he hid her away, in the manor. He told everyone she passed, but she was still alive. All these years." A chill ran down Emily's spine. A secret room? A hidden invalid? It sounded like something out of a Gothic novel. But it got worse. Mrs. Higgins pointed a trembling finger at Gabriel. She used to sneak out to see him. She knew. She always knew he was her grandson. She bribed me to keep quiet, said it was her only joy left. Richard stared at Gabriel, then at the manor, then back at Mrs. Higgins, his face a whirlwind of emotions. But why didn't she ever tell me? Why keep it a secret?" Mrs. Higgins just shook her head. She was afraid. Afraid of what Mr. Davenport would do. Afraid of ruining your life. Afraid of Cassandra. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the manor. It was high-pitched, shrill, and filled with pure terror. Mrs. Higgins gasped. "That's her! That's Mrs. Davenport!" Richard's face hardened. He took off towards the manor, leaving Emily and Gabriel standing alone on the cliff. Emily hesitated, then grabbed Gabriel's hand and followed. The storm was picking up again, the wind howling like a banshee. Something terrible was happening at Davenport Manor. Something that was about to change everything. As they reached the front door, they found it ajar. They slipped inside. The silence inside was deafening. Until another scream, closer this time. They followed the sound, deeper and deeper into the house, until they reached a small, unassuming door at the end of a long corridor. Richard was already there, pounding on the door, yelling, "Mother! Mother, what's happening?" Then the door creaked open, and standing in the doorway, a figure emerged. Not an old, frail woman, as Emily expected, but a young woman, maybe early 20s, beautiful, with long dark hair and piercing blue eyes. She looked at Richard, a cold smile twisting her lips. "Hello, brother." Richard froze. "Brother? What are you talking about? Mother?" The woman laughed, a chilling, unsettling sound. "Oh, she's here, but she's not your mother. She's my prisoner, and you, dear brother, are standing in my house now." She stepped aside, revealing the room behind her. And in the center of the room, tied to a chair, was Cassandra Davenport, alive, and looking absolutely furious. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was who was standing behind her, holding a knife to her throat. Emily's jaw dropped. It couldn't be. But it was. Mrs. Higgins, her face twisted with rage. Mrs. Higgins, her face twisted with rage. "You little witch!" Richard roared, trying to get past the young woman blocking the doorway. "What have you done with my mother?" The woman just smirked, a nasty, cruel smirk. "Your mother? Oh, she's been a very naughty girl. Kept secrets, you see. Secrets that should have been mine." Emily was stunned. Mrs. Higgins? Capable of this? It didn't make any sense. She looked at Gabriel, who was clinging to her leg, his eyes wide with fear. This was too much for a child. "Mrs. Higgins, please," Emily pleaded. "What are you doing? Let her go." Mrs. Higgins didn't even glance at her. Her eyes were locked on Cassandra, who was struggling against her bonds, her face red with terror. "She deserves this. She knew. They all knew. And they let my daughter rot." "Daughter?" Emily's head spun. "What daughter?" Richard finally managed to shove the young woman aside and rushed into the room. "Mrs. Higgins, stop! You don't want to do this." But Mrs. Higgins was beyond reason. She pressed the knife closer to Cassandra's throat, drawing a thin line of blood. Too late. Years too late. My Lily. She was supposed to have it all, but they took it away from her. "Lily?" the young woman sneered. "You're talking about that pathetic little thing? She was nothing." Mrs. Higgins' face crumpled. "Don't you dare talk about my daughter like that. She was beautiful, kind, and Richard's true love." Richard froze. "What? Lily? Lily was my..." Suddenly, the young woman burst out laughing, a high-pitched, hysterical laugh that echoed through the room. "Oh, this is too rich! You really don't know, do you? Daddy Dearest kept so many secrets." She turned to Emily, her eyes gleaming with malice. "You see, darling, Lily wasn't just Richard's true love. She was his sister." The air in the room seemed to thicken, making it hard to breathe. Richard stared at the young woman, his face white as a ghost. "Sister? What are you saying? That's impossible." "Oh, it's not impossible," the young woman said, her voice dripping with venom. "Daddy Dearest had a little affair, you see, a little fling with one of the maids. Lily was the result. But of course, he couldn't let that little scandal ruin the precious Davenport name, could he? So he hid her away, paid her off, and Mrs. Higgins here raised her, believing she was doing what was best." Mrs. Higgins' face was a mask of grief and rage. "They ruined her. They kept her away from him. She loved him, Richard. She loved you with all her heart. But she knew she could never have you. And then Then she found out about Cassandra, that you were going to marry her. She couldn't take it. She took her own life. A wave of nausea washed over Emily. This was insane. A twisted, tragic fairy tale. And you? Richard asked the young woman, his voice barely a whisper. Who are you? The young woman smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent shivers down Emily's spine. Oh, darling, haven't you guessed? I'm Lily's daughter. I'm here to avenge my mother and to claim what's rightfully mine. She took a step closer to Richard, her eyes filled with a cold, calculating glint. You see, Richard, you were supposed to be mine. You were supposed to love my mother. But you didn't. And now you're going to pay the price. Suddenly, she lunged at Richard, pushing him back towards the open doorway. He stumbled, trying to regain his balance, but it was too late. With a swift, decisive movement, she shoved him right over the edge of the same crumbling cliff that had claimed Cassandra. He screamed, a sound that echoed in Emily's ears. Then, silence. Emily gasped, grabbing Gabriel and pulling him behind her. What in God's name was happening? Mrs. Higgins just stood there, staring at the empty doorway, her face blank. The young woman turned back to them, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Well, that's done. Now about that little boy. Well, that's done. Now about that little boy. She took a step toward Gabriel, and Emily's blood ran cold. This woman, this monster, wasn't going to stop. Not until she had it all. Stay away from him, Emily screamed, grabbing a heavy candlestick from a nearby table. It was all she had. The young woman just laughed. You think you can protect him? You're nothing but a servant, just like my grandmother. You'll end up just like her, scrubbing floors for the rest of your life. Emily lunged, swinging the candlestick. With all her might, it connected with the woman's shoulder, sending her staggering back. But she recovered quickly, her eyes blazing with fury. You'll regret that, she hissed, reaching into her pocket. She pulled out a small silver pistol. Emily froze. A gun? This was getting way out of hand. But before the woman could raise the gun, Mrs. Higgins moved. With a speed Emily wouldn't have thought possible, she grabbed a letter opener from a nearby desk and threw it. It hit the young woman square in the chest. The woman gasped, clutching at the letter opener. Her eyes widened in shock. Then, slowly, she crumpled to the floor. Silence. Mrs. Higgins stood there, her chest heaving, the letter opener still clutched in her hand. She looked down at the woman's body, then back at Emily and Gabriel. I didn't mean to, she stammered, her voice trembling. It just happened. Emily couldn't speak. She was too stunned. 2 people dead in the space of an hour? It was like something out of a nightmare. Then, Gabriel tugged on her hand. "Mommy, I'm scared," he whispered, his eyes wide with fear. Emily knelt down and hugged him tight. "It's okay, sweetie. It's going to be okay." But she didn't believe it, not for a second. Suddenly, Mrs. Higgins started to cough, a deep, racking cough that shook her entire body. She clutched at her chest, her face turning red. "Mrs. Higgins, are you okay?" Emily asked, fear creeping into her voice. Mrs. Higgins shook her head, her eyes filled with a strange, knowing look. It's too late for me," she gasped. "I've been poisoned." Poisoned? Emily's head spun. Who would poison Mrs. Higgins? Then it hit her. The young woman. Before she died, she must have... Mrs. Higgins reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, ornate box. She handed it to Emily. "Take this," she whispered. It's the truth. The whole truth about everything." Emily took the box, her hands trembling. What was inside? What secrets did it hold? Mrs. Higgins coughed again, a gurgling, rattling sound. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she slumped to the floor, dead. Emily stared at the box, then at the 3 bodies lying in the room. Richard, the young woman, Mrs. Higgins, all dead, and all because of the secrets hidden in Davenport Manor. But what were those secrets? And what was in the box? She had to find out. She had to know the truth. Suddenly, she heard a noise, a faint creaking sound coming from behind her. She turned around, her heart pounding in her chest. And there, standing in the doorway, was Richard. But it wasn't Richard. Not really. His eyes were cold, empty. His face was a mask, and he was holding a knife. "Hello, Emily," he said, his voice a low, menacing growl. "Did you really think it was over?" "Hello, Emily," he said, his voice a low, menacing growl. "Did you really think it was over?" Emily stared, frozen. It couldn't be Richard. Not after she'd seen him fall. But there he was, standing in the doorway, his eyes black, his face twisted into something she didn't recognize. "Richard? What's going on?" she stammered, clutching Gabriel tighter. He smiled, a slow, terrifying smile. "Richard is gone. He was weak, pathetic. But I'm much stronger now." He took a step closer, the knife glinting in the dim light. Emily backed away, her mind racing. This wasn't Richard. It was something else, something evil. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He laughed, a chilling, hollow laugh. "Who am I? I'm what Richard always wanted to be, what he was always meant to be. I'm the true heir to Davenport Manor." He raised the knife, his eyes fixed on Emily. "And you, my dear, are standing in my way." Suddenly, Gabriel screamed, "Daddy, no!" He ran towards Richard, his little arms outstretched. Richard stopped, his face contorted. For a moment, just a fleeting moment, Emily saw a flicker of the old Richard in his eyes. Then it was gone. He shoved Gabriel aside, sending him sprawling to the floor. Emily screamed, lunging for her son. "Get away from him!" she shrieked, shielding Gabriel with her body. Richard just laughed again, a cold, heartless laugh. "He's nothing. A bastard child, just like his mother." He raised the knife again, his eyes burning with hate. Emily closed her eyes, bracing for the blow. But it never came. Instead, there was a sickening thud, a grunt of pain. Emily opened her eyes. Richard was lying on the floor, the knife clattering beside him, and standing over him, her face a mask of fury, was Cassandra. Alive. But it wasn't the Cassandra she remembered. This Cassandra was different. Her eyes were hard, cold. Her face was set in a determined grimace. There was something almost inhuman about her. What the hell?" Emily whispered, her mind reeling. Cassandra ignored her. "Magic to make it look like I was dead. He wanted me out of the way so he could control Richard completely." "Dark magic?" Emily gasped. This was insane. It couldn't be real. But then she looked at Richard's lifeless body, his face contorted in a grotesque mask, and she knew, deep down, that Cassandra was telling the truth. "But who is he?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Who is controlling Richard?" Cassandra took a deep breath, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "He's been here all along, Emily. Hiding in plain sight. He's the one who orchestrated everything. The one who's been pulling the strings from the very beginning." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He's Gabriel's teddy bear." Emily stared at her, her mind unable to comprehend what she was hearing. Gabriel's teddy bear? The worn-out, beat-up teddy bear that he always carried with him? It was impossible. But as she looked at the teddy bear, lying on the floor, its button eyes staring blankly ahead, she couldn't shake the feeling that Cassandra was right. There was something wrong with that teddy bear. Something unnatural. Suddenly, the teddy bear's head twitched. Then it slowly turned towards Emily. And in that moment, she knew. Everything she thought she knew about Davenport Manor was a lie. The real horror had just begun. And in that moment, she knew. Everything she thought she knew about Davenport Manor was a lie. The real horror had just begun. The teddy bear. Its head turned so slowly, so deliberately. Those button eyes, they weren't blank anymore. They were focused on Emily. Cassandra was right. It sounds crazy, I know, but that teddy bear wasn't just a toy. It was something else, something old. A voice, raspy and low, seemed to crawl out of the bear. "Emily Carter, such a pretty little thing. Pity you had to get mixed up in all this." Emily stumbled back, knocking over a chair. Gabriel started to cry again, reaching for his bear. "Teddy? What's wrong, Teddy?" "Stay away from it, Gabriel." Emily screamed, her voice cracking. She didn't know what was happening, but she knew, with every fiber of her being, that Gabriel needed to stay far, far away from that toy. Suddenly, the teddy bear's body started to change. It was like watching a grotesque puppet show. The fabric stretched and twisted, the stuffing shifted, and the little bear grew larger. Its limbs elongated, its button eyes glowed with a faint, eerie light, and its stitched mouth twisted into a cruel, mocking grin. It was still a teddy bear, but it wasn't a toy anymore. It was a monster. Cassandra gasped, backing away. "The familiar! It's taken over! It's been waiting, feeding off Richard's weakness." Familiar? What was she talking about? The thing that had been Gabriel's teddy bear stood up, towering over them. It reached out a long, spindly arm, its claws made of sharpened thread. "Such delicious fear," it hissed, its voice a sickening blend of child's toy and ancient evil. "I've been waiting so long for this. For a Carter to finally awaken my true power." Wait, a Carter? It turned its glowing eyes on Emily, and then it spoke, and what it said sent a jolt of ice through her veins. "You see, Emily, you're not just a small-town girl. You're a descendant of the original Davenports, the ones who were banished from this land for practicing dark magic. You're the true heir, Emily. Not Richard, not any of them. You're the one who can unlock the power of Davenport Manor. and I'm going to help you. It held out its hand. Join me, Emily, and together we will rule this land. Emily stared at the monster, her mind reeling. Descendant of dark magic? The true heir? It couldn't be true. But then she looked down at Gabriel, clinging to her leg, his eyes wide with terror. And she knew, deep down, that she had a choice to make. A choice that would determine the fate of everyone in Davenport Manor, and maybe the world. Because just then, a voice, clear as a bell, echoed through the manor. "Mother, is that you?" Everyone froze. Even the teddy bear monster seemed taken aback. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, elegant, and radiating a power that made Emily's knees weak. It was Emily's mother. But that wasn't possible. Her mother died years ago. "Mom?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. Her mother smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "It's time, Emily. Time for you to embrace your destiny. Time for you to claim your birthright. The power of the Carters is finally yours." And then her eyes turned black as night. And then her eyes turned black as night. Black, like pools of tar. Empty, lifeless, but somehow powerful. "Mum?" Emily choked out, tears blurring her vision. It was her mum. She knew it. The way she stood, the curve of her smile. But something was terribly wrong. Horribly, terrifyingly wrong. Her mother tilted her head, her dark eyes fixed on Emily. "It's time, darling. Time to embrace your destiny. This thing is right. You are the heir, the power. It's calling to you." But Teddy Bear Monster grinned, those glowing button eyes glinting with triumph. "Yes, Emily, join us. We will be unstoppable," Cassandra whimpered, backing further away. "No, Emily, don't listen to them. It's a trap. They're going to use you." Use her? But her mother? She wouldn't, would she? Suddenly, a voice, small and clear, broke through the tension. "Mummy, I'm scared." "Gabriel." Emily's heart clenched. He was just a little boy. He didn't understand any of this. All he knew was that his mum was talking to a scary monster, and a woman who looked like his grandma, but wasn't acting like one. And then it happened. Her mother reached out, her hand outstretched towards Gabriel. "Come here, little one. Let Grandma show you the real magic." Emily's blood turned to ice. No, she wouldn't let them near him. She couldn't. "Get away from him," she screamed, pushing Gabriel behind her. "Stay away from my son." Her mother's smile faltered, a flicker of something. Sorrow crossed her face. "Emily, please, don't make this harder than it already is. He's a Carter. He deserves to know his heritage." "Heritage?" Emily spat. "This isn't heritage. This is madness. This is evil." And then her mother's eyes snapped back to black. All trace of humanity vanished. "You're making a mistake, Emily," she said, her voice cold and hard. "A grave mistake." She turned to the teddy bear monster. "Take her, my familiar. Show her the power of the Carters." The monster lunged. But then something incredible happened. Cassandra, who had been cowering in the corner, suddenly stood up. Her eyes were blazing with a newfound fire. She grabbed a heavy silver candlestick from a nearby table and charged at the monster. "Get away from them!" she yelled, swinging the candlestick with all her might. The candlestick connected with the monster's head with a sickening thud. The monster roared in pain, stumbling backwards. "Cassandra?" Emily gasped, stunned. Cassandra just glared at her. "Don't just stand there, Emily. Run! Get out of here! Take Gabriel and run as far as you can." Emily didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed Gabriel's hand and ran. They fled through the manor, past the bodies, past the shadows, past the horrors she couldn't even begin to comprehend. They burst out of the front door and into the storm. The wind howled, the rain lashed down, but Emily didn't stop. She ran, pulling Gabriel behind her, towards the cliffs. But then she saw them. Standing on the edge of the cliff, blocking their path, her mother and the teddy bear monster. They were trapped. "There's nowhere left to run, Emily," her mother said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Your destiny awaits." Emily looked around, desperate. There had to be a way out. There had to be a way to save Gabriel. And then she saw it. A small, almost invisible path leading down the cliff face. A path she had played on as a child. A path that led to the beach below. It was dangerous, treacherous, but it was their only chance. She looked at Gabriel, her heart aching with love. "Hold on tight, sweetheart," she whispered. "This is going to be a bumpy ride." And then she jumped. As they scrambled down the cliff path, clinging to the rocks, dodging the crashing waves, Emily heard a voice that chilled her to the bone, a voice that she never, ever expected to hear again. "Going somewhere, Emily?" She looked up. Standing at the top of the cliff, silhouetted against the stormy sky, was Richard. But it wasn't Richard. It couldn't be. He was dead. She saw him fall. But there he was, his eyes glowing with the same dark power as her mother, a cruel smile twisting his lips. And then he spoke. "Hello, sister. Going somewhere, Emily?" She looked up. Standing at the top of the cliff, silhouetted against the stormy sky, was Richard. But it wasn't Richard. It couldn't be. He was dead. She saw him fall. But there he was, his eyes glowing with the same dark power as her mother, a cruel smile twisting his lips. And then he spoke. "Hello, sister." Sister, what was happening? The wind howled, tearing at her clothes, mocking her confusion. Gabriel whimpered, burying his face in her leg. She had to protect him. Somehow. Richard, or whatever was pretending to be Richard, started to descend the path, his movements unnervingly graceful, like a predator stalking its prey. Her mother, she was nowhere to be seen. Had she vanished? Or was she simply waiting, letting this thing have its fun? "Don't be afraid, Emily," the thing wearing Richard's face said, his voice a sickeningly sweet imitation of the man she thought she knew. "We're family now. We can rule this place together, just like it was always meant to be." Rule? She didn't want to rule anything. She just wanted to protect Gabriel, to get them both out of this nightmare. Suddenly, a voice, sharp and cold, cut through the storm. "He's lying, Emily." Everyone froze. Even the thing in Richard's skin seemed taken aback. Standing behind it, at the top of the path, was Cassandra. But it wasn't the Cassandra she'd last seen, the one radiating a desperate plea for help. This Cassandra was different. Her eyes burned with a cold, calculating intelligence. Her face was set in a mask of grim determination. She looked older, wiser. And then she spoke again, and her words shattered everything Emily thought she knew. "He's not your brother, Emily. He's your father." The world tilted. Sister? Father? It didn't make any sense. Her head swam, the wind whipping at her hair, the rain stinging her face. She couldn't process this. The thing wearing Richard's face snarled. "Lies! She's trying to trick you, Emily. Don't listen to her." But Emily couldn't take her eyes off Cassandra. There was something in her gaze, a certainty, a truth that couldn't be denied. "He's been playing you all along, Emily," Cassandra continued, her voice ringing with authority. "He's the one who orchestrated everything, the baby switch, the deaths, the madness. It was all him. He needed a Carter with the Davenport blood to unlock the manor's true power. But he couldn't control you directly, so he used your son. He amplified the darkness in Gabriel's blood, twisted his power, and, well, that's why we're all here. Gabriel? What was she saying about Gabriel? He seduced your mother, Emily, knowing full well the consequences. He's been waiting for this moment for centuries. He's not Richard's brother. He's Richard's father." A wave of nausea washed over Emily. This was impossible. It was too much. She couldn't breathe. And then Cassandra did something that made Emily's blood run cold. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver dagger. She raised it high above her head. "I'm sorry, Emily," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But this has to end, here and now." And with a scream, she plunged the dagger, not into the thing wearing Richard's face, but into Gabriel. "Okay, Emily?" "Mal teve tempo de entender. Cassandra, ela tinha esfaqueado o Gabriel? O pequeno Gabriel, tão inocente, tão indefeso." Grito rasgou a noite. Era Emily. Grito de dor, de raiva, de puro desespero. Ela se atirou para cima de Cassandra, com a força de uma leoa protegendo sua cria. "Por quê?" Ela gritou, socando Cassandra com toda a sua força. "Por que você fez isso?" Cassandra cambaleou para trás, com o rosto marcado pela fúria de Emily. "Eu tinha que fazer isso. Ele era a chave para o poder deles." "Poder? Que poder? Você matou meu filho!" Emily berrou, as lágrimas escorrendo pelo seu rosto. Ela não conseguia acreditar, não conseguia aceitar. Seu mundo tinha acabado de desabar. De repente, o Finn que usava o corpo de Richard começou a rir. Uma risada fria, cruel, que ecoou pela praia. "Patético", ele disse com desprezo. "Você acha que pode me deter com essa tolice? O sangue dele já foi derramado. O portal está aberto." E então o chão começou a tremer. O mar se agitou. O céu se abriu, revelando um redemoinho de luzes e sombras. "O que está acontecendo?" Cassandra perguntou, com a voz trêmula. "O ritual está completo", o Finn disse com um sorriso sádico. "Agora o poder de Davenport Manor será meu." De repente uma figura surgiu do redemoinho. Uma figura alta, imponente, com olhos negros e um sorriso cruel. Era a mãe de Emily, mas não era a mãe que ela conhecia e amava. Era algo mais. "Bem-vinda, filha", ela disse, com uma voz fria e calculista. "Junte-se a nós, juntas dominaremos este mundo." Emily olhou para o corpo de Gabriel, estendido na areia, para Cassandra. O rosto marcado, e os olhos cheios de arrependimento, para o Thing que usava o corpo de Richard, com um sorriso vitorioso, para sua mãe, com os olhos negros e a ambição desmedida. E então ela tomou uma decisão. Ela se levantou, com o rosto lavado pelas lágrimas e a alma cheia de dor. Mas em seus olhos havia uma nova determinação. Eu não vou me juntar a vocês, ela disse, com a voz firme e decidida. Eu não vou deixar vocês destruírem este mundo. Eu vou lutar por Gabriel, por todos que vocês machucaram. A mãe de Emily sorriu, com desprezo. Você não tem chance, filha. Você não sabe do que é capaz. Eu sei do que sou capaz, Emily respondeu, com um brilho nos olhos. Eu sou uma Carter, e nós nunca desistimos. E então ela se lançou para a batalha. Uma batalha que definiria o destino de todos. Uma batalha que revelaria os segredos mais sombrios de Davenport Manor. Mas será que Emily conseguirá vencer? A história acaba aqui? Ou há mais horrores à espreita, prontos para emergir das sombras? A resposta está em suas mãos. Você precisa se inscrever agora no canal. Não deixe para depois. Cada segundo conta para desvendar os próximos mistérios. Esmague o botão de like agora mesmo. Mostre sua força. Mostre seu apoio. Alimente o algoritmo e faça com que essa história chegue a mais pessoas. Inunde a seção de comentários com suas reações. O que você achou desse final? Quem você acha que vai vencer essa batalha? Compartilhe suas teorias. Queremos saber tudo. Compartilhe imediatamente este vídeo com pelo menos 5 amigos. Aqueles amigos que amam uma boa história, que curtem um bom mistério, que precisam conhecer esse desfecho inesperado. Não espere nem mais um segundo. A hora de agir é agora. Apenas os verdadeiros fãs compreendem a importância de apoiar o canal com estas ações. Faça parte da nossa comunidade. Mostre sua paixão e vamos juntos descobrir os segredos que ainda estão por vir.